Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining us. My name is Andrew Iwamasa with Collectors Corner Incorporated, and hopefully this will be the first of a regular broadcast for us that we'll be doing for Talking in the Corner. This will ongoing be kind of the week in review for comic books, and every once in a while we'll have guest stars like Comic Cat and Hero. And oops, not on the computer though. And hello, buddy. Hero, everyone. And we'll be going over and doing a kind of review of everything that's happened in the past week for comic books and comic book news. And this week, though, this episode, we're going to be talking about everything since the beginning of the year. And so I'm going to go ahead and get right into it. We're going to try and add in some more tech as we go along, and we'll actually be having a friend of ours, Matt Corneal, be joining us here shortly, just to kind of have more interaction rather than just boring old me sitting around. Although I think this is tending to be a little interesting, that's for sure. Okay, so let's just go ahead and get started. First thing I would like to make mention is, well, I will try and keep this all professional. I'm not really a journalist. I'm a fanboy myself, so we might accidentally give spoilers. So this is a warning right here. Spoilers may occur by accident, although I won't try and do that on purpose. So for everything that's coming on up and that we're talking about here, I'm actually written a blog already that is up on our site, and you can go to ccornermi.com and be able to see that there. Scroll all the way down to the bottom and you'll see all our little posts. And we'll go a little bit more in depth in that article on some of the things we're talking about here. All right. So the first thing that we wanted to mention that's pretty big news in the comic industry, Heritage Auction just recently had Batman #1 sell for $2.2 million. It's the highest price that's seen for this book. It's 9.4 and a graded condition. So these Golden Age comic books are definitely forced to be reckoned with. And if you're a comic collector and have the disposable income, these books are only going to continue on going up in value because they're truly scarce. And I'll do another kind of video as well as blog on the idea of collecting and what type of collector you are and the different ages of comic books. So keep an eye out for that soon. Let's see. Next, we've got, oh, of course, big week for live action comic book news as WandaVision dropped its first 2 episodes on Disney Plus. We watched it as a family earlier this week, and I really enjoyed it, as did my 9-year-old son and our 23-year-old daughter. 23, I believe that's right.
No one's here to answer.
Oh, no one is here to answer me. Bad memory right now. Anyway, I apologize. So Hayden also joined us, and what we all enjoyed it. But one of the things that we were a little kind of concerned about is the length of time that they're spending on the kind of world building process. So without too much of spoilers, they do focus a lot on different styles of ages of sitcoms. So kind of a very Dick Van Dyke Show for the first one, a very kind of Bewitched for the second episode, and they're doing a lot more with that same style moving forwards, including hitting things like Brady Bunch or Married with Children kind of feel. And it's, I think, going to be a little hard for the masses to try and get through and enjoy, because I think it's going to be a little too stylized for most people. But I truly do believe that it will be worth checking out and watching the whole way through. So definitely give it a chance. Our friend Mike from Midland saying hey in the comments. Hey, Mike. All right. On our blog, also, we'll have a listing of a bunch of speculation books that you can pick up. That if you're a collector looking for value, these are all books that are kind of hitting high, as you'll see in our pictures that way. We put up, the first appearance of Vision, first appearance of Scarlet Witch. Those are obviously really high pricey books already, but there are a lot of other ones that we listed there that are ones to keep an eye on. Let's see what's next here. Oh, also, Batwoman season 2 is going to be starting out for those of you that have been enjoying the DC WB series. And new Batwoman, who was this new character, Ryan Wilder, was introduced in Batgirl number 50, the last issue of the current series. And so that one might be a good one for you to pick up, although it did go from a high of about $30 and it's currently down to about $10. So you'll see how a lot of these spec books, especially in today's day and age of eBay and whatnot, will have a lot of highs and lows. But definitely some things to look at. The villain of the series for this next season was first introduced in Shadow of the Bat number 1. Which had a pretty large print run, so it's kind of sitting around a lot of dollar boxes, so might be a good one to go kind of back issue diving for. Let's see, Mortal Kombat. They just released a bunch of new photos. Entertainment Weekly had some exclusives, so we kind of added those in. And there's some key books to keep a lookout there. Midway actually had their own series before the rights went to Malibu and then DC. So there's a ton of different series out there, some of them hitting the $100 marks and some of them sitting around like the $10 area. So definitely a lot of stuff there to go hunting for that's within budgets. Let's see. So 2 books that have been really, really hot over the past recent couple of weeks. Future State Teen Titans saw the first regular DC Universe appearance of Red X, which was a character originally introduced in the Teen Titans Go animated series back in the day. And then he was also introduced into the Teen Titans Go comic book back in the day as well. That one's kind of pushed past the $100 mark. But even the Teen Titans Future State issue number 1 is seeing prices between $20 and $30 right now. We unfortunately just sold out. We had one person buy up 5 copies that we had left. So that one we don't have available anymore. But Star Wars High Republic number 1, we do still have copies of. That also has a bunch of first appearances in it and a bunch of variety different covers. Each one of these are going to have second prints coming out very shortly. And the Star Wars High Republic is actually even going to have a 3rd print because the 2nd print's already sold out as well. I'll do another blog and video on what I actually think of second printings and their collectible nature sometime here very shortly as well. Oh, yeah. So Mike just wrote, wait, Teen Titans is old enough to refer to as back in the day? He feels old now. And yes, unfortunately, we are all getting old, Mike. So Amazing Spider-Man 55 is another one of the hot comic books that has come out recently. And both of the covers that are on my screen right now are done by one of the Stormbreaker new artists that Marvel has, Patrick Gleason. Really, really cool stuff. I'm anxious to see more. But the black and white one there is Amazing Spider-Man number 55. It's been seeing prices up to about $40 right now for that cover. And there are a variety of different covers for this issue. There's a 2nd print that's coming out. That's going to be all the white will be red. We do have that for sale on our online purchasing platform right now. And then also that way, the Carnage book, that is a variant cover that was just announced recently. And if you want to get the Patrick Gleason cover, we do have it available right now at cover price. And if you want to guarantee you get it at cover price, you should pre-order it now with us at our online purchasing platform. He is going, those are variant covers are being called Webhead variant covers now, of which he's apparently going to be doing regularly for the Spider-Man universe. Speaking of the Spider-Man universe, if you haven't been getting the King in Black series, you've definitely been missing out on on the Venom story arc, and in issue 4 of King in Black, there will be a free preview, 6-page preview of Peach Momoko's new X-Men series. And a lot of you have been raving and collecting all of the Momoko variant covers that have been coming out. This is going to be the first time sequential art, actual story is going to be done. So make sure you check that out. It's going to then be coming out later in the year as a prestige format book. Oh, and then the last thing that I want to touch base on here before I bring my friend Matt in is we also have listed up there the December 2020 comic books. These are the books that sold the most based on some numbers that have been collected from Comic Hub for the 5 weeks surrounding December, including the end of November and the beginning of this year. And the top 5 books were King in Black #1, Batman 104, Batman Catwoman #1, Death Metal #7, which leads into all the future state stuff. And I guess I only have the top 4 pictures there, not 5. But we've got the top 20 listed. We have all 20 of those available on our online purchasing platform. So be sure you go check that out. And all right, let's see about bringing Matt in here, so I'm not just randomly yammering up here. There you go. Hey, Matt, can you hear us?
I can. How's it going?
Hey, going well, going well. So for those,
I know you and I have just started like recently talking about that the death metal is one of my, or the fat metal, that whole series is one of my favorites.
yeah, absolutely. For those of you that don't know, Matt has been not only a longtime customer of Collectors Corner, but a really, really great friend of my entire family's forever. And he recently made a post online about the Batman Who Laughs being one of the coolest villains he's seen in a long time. And I felt obnoxiously bad about the fact that I didn't even contemplate to tell him about that character. So I completely dropped the ball there for you, Matt. I apologize.
Oh, that's cool. You didn't, however, with the Kelsheim stuff, because you knew that was going to be right on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those Kelsheim spoilers have been crazy, but that's not what we're here for.
That's right. That's right. So tell me, what kind of things have you been checking out in comics recently? I know that we were talking earlier that you and Mike were actually talking about the WandaVision series on Disney Plus.
Yes. So have you watched it yet?
I have watched it. That is correct. Both episodes.
And
what's your?
I'm very intrigued. Like, I'm glad they're not just going with standard superhero storyline. Like, that's kind of what I'm picturing Winter Soldier and Falcon being like. Okay.
Sure, I think that definitely is going to fill in that need, and so I question a little bit if they shouldn't have had the shows come out in the reverse order, but it's entirely possible that just due to COVID and whatnot, that was the way that it all panned out. And I agree with you. I think that it's great that it's doing something very, very different. I just am concerned that it's going to be a little much for the masses, that it's not going to be holding their attention enough, because it is very much tribute to the original shows that they're basing it on. And it appears like each episode is tribute to a different sitcom. And you know, I'll be the first person to say though that I don't read online a whole lot, so I'm sure a lot of this information is not new to anyone else that's been reading everything. But you know, the first episode being very much a tribute to the Dick Van Dyke Show, even including like the phasing through the chair instead of tripping through it in the little introduction.
And then the second episode was so like I dream. I don't know. It go between I Dream a Genie or Bewitched. It's 6 of one,
I
half
think
dozen of the
very,
other.
very Bewitched for me.
Okay, but um, yeah, I for sure. Mike commented in the thing about.
Connection was a little bad there. Hiccup. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Mike asked the question in the comments. Also, I personally am not.
Oh yeah, if we followed the West Coast Avengers stuff early into their marriage.
I
Yes.
did not.
So it's very, very 1980s feeling comic book stuff that was going on there. It's super dated. I love it because, you know, I was growing up reading all that stuff. Um, Even though I was mostly a DC guy when I was a kid, you know, all this, the new characters that they were bringing in with the West Coast Avengers and Hawkeye and Vision and all that stuff was really kind of interesting to me. So I followed a lot of that. Reading it now, it all is super, super dated from a comic book reading standpoint.
See, I was more of a mutant. Like I didn't follow the Avengers or like Iron Man at all. Like I was a mutant, like X-Men. Um, and I just didn't really follow the Avenger stuff. And I was more of a DC person in that at that point, even if I've always hated Superman, like forever.
Yeah.
Because I even at some point now, I think DC in um, written form, like comic form, tells better stories a lot of the time.
Well, yeah, we touched about this briefly when we were talking before the show here. Like Wonder Woman, 1984 is a great example of where DC currently seems to be in the idea that if you frame all of DC's live action stuff in the idea that they're trying to make the best 1980s superhero live action shows possible, then they're actually doing a really brilliant job. You know, if you compare it to, you know, Star Trek Next Generation or, Doctor Who from the 80s, the original Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy BBC series, the Incredible Hulk TV series, all of those things, if you compare it to that kind of mindset, then they're doing a really good job with performing that. It's just Marvel has shown that you can do modern day comic book films in a manner that's open it to the masses, not directed at the stereotypical fanboy, which is unfortunately where I think they're at. And I just wish they were doing something different.
Well, because it wasn't the visuals and it wasn't the 80s-ness of Wonder Woman that I didn't like. It was there was literally no consequences to the entire plot. I mean, I think one of the first things I said to you after I saw it was, I wish back when we were playing D&D that I knew that when you made the wish spell and the DM like purposely screwed you because you didn't say every single word right, and you could just go, wait, I unwish it, and then everything is back to normal and fine.
Right. Yeah, you kind of cut out there again a little bit. So, but I think I caught the gist of it. Um, the problem I had with Wonder Woman was the same problem that I had with Suicide Squad, beyond like the writing issues, right? Was the main problem I had was, again, with trying not to give any spoilers, the reason why the characters do the things they do at the end of the movie just doesn't make any sense. So in Suicide Squad, it's the scene where they're all at the bar together and they all just decide to continue forward towards the end of the movie. When, if you back and you think about it, logically, none of those characters stay together. They all disband. And at the end of the film, where I argue for Wonder Woman that Max makes a decision understandably. Cheetah's decision makes no sense whatsoever. And then you tie that into the entire world, who's making decisions there as well. If you just look at, not to get deep into the real world because that's just depressing, but if you look at what's happened in the real world recently, it shows you that people wouldn't make that very honorable decision.
No,
They're,
no.
it just wouldn't. And so
I
you
would have been. I would have been a
oh, go
little
ahead.
better had like that right there been the thing. Like, show us that yeah, Max made that decision, but there were real world consequences. Like it just seemed like everything went back to being blue skies and happiness after that. Like some things wouldn't have gone back. They would have just, and that could have been a really good setup to something else. You
Sure.
know, and DC has shown with their TV shows that they're not afraid to like. Look, Harley Quinn went all over the place with her storyline. I mean, did you ever watch the cartoon?
I really wanted to like it. I really, really
I
did.
loved it. I
I
loved it.
I could not get through more than 3 episodes. Um, there's certain things that just bug me. And
It
uh,
wasn't Kite Man, right? Because Kite Man's the best.
Kite Man is very entertaining. That he actually was like a main part of the story behind the Riddler Joker war that happened earlier in the Batman series, and I truly adore the fact that they actually took a character that's obviously so ridiculous and tried to kind of make a mainstream without like making him any better.
Well,
But
they
he
do
is what
introduce
he is. I thought that was
Condiment King
great.
too, as Kite Man's rival. So, it, and as far as ridiculous characters go, that's got to be up there.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep. I agree. I mean, because I mean, he was designed to be a parody of all the other characters and just to show how ridiculous it all is.
yeah, but I mean,
Okay,
I just
so
think
your thoughts on WandaVision?
I'm really intrigued. No, I enjoyed it. I'm intrigued to see where they go with it. The silliness will grow old if it doesn't go anywhere.
Sure. I
It's
think
not
I think
not the
the
50s, and
well,
this is
every episode, like I said, is going to feature a different decade, right? A tribute to a different decade in a different show. Um, and my gut feeling tells me that as they go along, it's going to be more and more getting them into current day continuity, like what's going on in the real universe.
and I'm pretty sure I saw somewhere that this is kind of leading into the second Doctor Strange movie too.
Yeah, behind the scenes, they've definitely made some connecting the dots. So people have been talking about a lot of different things. In my blog, I put in a couple of speculator comic books that people might want to hunt for before it actually happens on screen. But it's all stuff that's kind of like spoiler-ish if you haven't been following any of like the casting calls or things like that. But so they are definitely introducing some characters in this series that are already mentioned in the mainstream Marvel Cinematic Universe, other than Wanda and Vision, of course.
See, Mike just commented again. Mike's thinking this is all in Wanda's head. My theory is that she pulled Vision from a different multiverse, and the multiverse itself is mad.
Um, you know, I don't hate that idea. I hadn't thought about that aspect, but since they're talking about leading into Doctor Strange, I guess that could be laying the groundwork there. Um, the funny thing is we're all speculating on what Wanda's powers actually are in the Marvel Cinematic Universe because they've never really said what they are. We're all just kind of basing it on what we know from the comic books, and that she has this, you know, reality warping powers. Um, but I mean, her powers were never designed that way in the MCU, so
No,
it'll be interesting to see where they go with it. But yeah, I mean, Wanda definitely has control over certain aspects based on the first two episodes.
yep.
But they specifically have mentioned two different organizations, and for you that are not wanting spoilers, cover your ears. Hydra and Sword. Um, and so with also the clips where they shown in color, where like it's very Lost-esque, right? There's someone monitoring or some other thing that's going on outside of the reality that we're watching.
Yeah.
So, are they just monitoring her somehow, or are they the captors? I mean, at this juncture, we just don't have enough information
Well,
to go on.
was it off as you were on your Mandalorian ending last time I talked to you? When your prediction was that they weren't going to split them up last time I had talked to you at the end of season 2.
We You cut out there. Are you talking about Mandalorian?
Yeah. So I mean, like you said, we're just speculating. I mean, honestly, they could go any, it could, and that's hopefully kind of what they got going is that we can speculate all we want, and the comics happens this way, but
Sure.
we don't. Who wants the same story told to them over and over and over?
Well, sure. Well, the reason why, and I don't know how much this is cutting out on my broadcast versus just on my screen, but so what Matt's referencing here is we talked about Mandalorian season 2 before it actually ended. That I thought that story wise for the Mandalorian, there's no way that they could split Grogu and Mando apart from each other. Because the thing that makes the show is the two of them wandering around together. Then having the ending that they did in season 2, which was super awesome, totally
Oh yeah.
unexpected, loved,
I
absolutely
didn't think
loved.
they could up. I didn't think they could up the callback that they did like 3 episodes before that
Sure.
until that happened. Like
It was beautifully done. All the people that sit back and go, "Oh, visually it didn't look great or whatever." You guys are being too picky. It was
that
it was
was
a
what I remember.
Superman moment. It was brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and but here's my thing is you can't have this show all of a sudden become not the Mandalorian, right? You
No,
can't have it become the Grogu show with whoever he's with, right? Because then that just it's not the Mandalorian. And so I think season 3 at this juncture has to
oh, I'm
focus.
sure you did, Mike.
Mike said, "I lost my fool mind." Absolutely. Yeah, it was phenomenal. It was one of the best moments uh, that I experienced. But so I think for season 3, they've really got to be, because the show is called The Mandalorian, that it's got to focus on Mando and the group trying to take Mandalore back. And somehow work Grogu back into the story later. I mean, the character ages so slowly that we're never going to see him bouncing around, like interacting in any other way other than the way that
Baby
he
Yoda.
has been. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Um,
I mean, one can argue that he doesn't have to be a part of the show, but I think season 3 will be an exploration in can they make the show work without that connection,
um,
and we'll see.
they can't. I don't think they can indefinitely keep the show going without that connection. Um,
How long does the series go? I mean, I honestly argue that, well, I completely have adored the characters they added into this season, that giving, again, small spoiler for those of you that have been living under a rock, that giving Boba Fett his own show uh, only can go so far. I mean, they showed that they did a really cool thing with the character and that he could withstand his own. Um, but I don't know if we could hold a whole show continually for him. Maybe a miniseries, but I don't
um,
know.
the thing about Mandalorian that what it's going to it's going to be a kind of deciding factor for me because season 2 was a lot of shout outs.
Sure.
Just one episode shout. Like you had Akasha Tano and they mention Grand Admiral Thrawn. Like, yeah.
Right.
Although I heard Robert Downey Jr. is in talks for that part, and I don't. That's not my favorite pick for that.
It'll be really interesting, right? I mean, at this stage, it's all pure speculation.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, I agree. I think going in a different direction would be more advantageous. But there's a lot of stock in saying keeping people moving around from a franchise standpoint. So we'll see. I don't know.
The other thing we were
My
talking
my
about
my
was the
best casting, or my favorite casting for Mando, though, is still Ben Burr. I absolutely thought he was hilarious without being super comedic. I loved him.
yeah. We were talking about how we're speculating about Wanda's powers.
What's that?
Earlier we were talking about how we're speculating on what Wanda's powers in the MCU are.
Mhm.
One of the things, a YouTube channel that I watch that kind of helps keep. Not only does it give you the current story, but he will go into, okay, this is referencing this, which happened here, this long ago, or in this storyline. And it was actually at the King in Black, and going back to where Peter Parker ends up in the Ultimate Spider-Man universe after Peter Parker in the you know where I'm talking about? Like, what is it? Mysterio ends up chasing Peter Parker from, what is it, 616 into the Ultimate Universe.
Right.
And the guy that was doing the narration was talking about Tony Stark and how much different Ultimate Universe Tony Stark is versus regular Tony Stark, who is like the smartest thing since, the Beyonder, where Ultimate Universe Tony Stark is smart, one of the smartest people, but nowhere near the genius that he is in the regular Marvel universe. And that's kind of what we're doing with Wanda. Is Wanda going to have? I mean, in the comics, she had a lot of power. Is she going to have that much power?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, the whole House of M story arc that happened a long time ago in the Marvel comic universe had her create a whole separate universe. And so, does she?
Mike was saying, like she just ends like what 80% of all mutants just out of will.
Yeah, that's kind of a weird story arc that's kind of been not erased, but not talked about. It's there are a lot more mutants than the 198 mutants that happened after that story arc. And in the comic book world, if a writer doesn't like a specific story arc, they can just retroactively kind of write it out of existence with no real
She did in the MCU destroy Infinity Stone. Mike just pointed that out.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And Vision made the comment that she was powerful enough to do that. And even in Infinity War, actually, they did allude to the fact that Vision could exist without the Infinity Stone in his head. That's what they're trying to do in Wakanda. They just didn't have enough time to finish it. So,
However, he
theoretically,
does have the stone on WandaVision. That was something I noticed specifically. Is he does still have the stone, whether it's part of the illusion or not. But the stone still exists in Vision in that way.
Mhm.
So I'm very intrigued. Like I said, I'm it's definitely entertaining because um so many things just become the same, especially right now when we're all jonesing so much for new stuff because it kind of got dry there for a little bit.
Yeah, well, and to comment on your statement earlier that it's so different than everything the MC universe has been, I think that both Winter Soldier and Loki are going to be so much more in line with what the mainstream people view as the comic book stories. But the thing that I've talked about forever on what Marvel has been doing properly is they realize they don't need to make superhero films. Very few of their films in the entire MCU actually fit that category. It's more like they said, what kind of film can we make, a genre film, and let's put superheroes into it. So I argue that Iron Man 1 is really your terrorist Die Hard-esque show that happens to star Iron Man. You've got, Guardians of the Galaxy, which is really your kind of buddy cop comedy film. You can argue that Ragnarok fits that as well. You have Ant-Man, which is your kind of comedy heist film. Winter Soldier is Manchurian Candidate. And so you can go down the line and say, this is why these films are really doing well in the mass market and speaking to, the masses. Whereas, like we said before, DC is trying to make superhero films, which I think ultimately is why there's such discrepancy in box office success between the two companies.
I also argue that DC saw what Marvel had and wanted it way quicker. I think part of Marvel's success was the pace.
Well,
Okay, let's do
sure,
Iron Man. Let's do a really good Iron Man and just leave it. Hint towards something else. And that's what killed one of the things that killed the Universal MonsterVerse was that Mummy film introduced like 6 movies. On top
that
of being a
that
horrible
and
movie.
that script was relatively awful as well.
Yes. But when you try and cram all that into one movie, like, okay, this is way too much information for me to be processing right now. Like,
Sure, absolutely. But that's what, like, DC, that's their formula that they've gone on. You look back, even going back to Batman Returns, the second Michael Keaton film, and they're putting in Catwoman and Penguin, right? They're going back to the kind of Batman 66 formula of doing all this stuff to be so over the top, and then so over the top from the previous thing that they've done, that it just gets crazier and crazier until you wind up with Batman and Robin, and you just have a giant fiasco on your hands.
yeah.
Mike makes a comment here where he's talking about Marvel doing a lot of prep work. Man of Steel came out ages ago. It really, really did. So, there's been a lot of time that's passed here in the DCU too. Part of the problem is the DC universe has shifted gears a few times because key people have been moved around. Jeff
Yeah.
Johns has been the one kind of in control a lot of it recently. And even with the actor who plays Cyborg leaving and citing a lot of kind of issues behind the scenes, it hasn't been until recently that they decided that moving forwards, everything was going to be part of the DC multiverse, which I argue they needed to do before. And DC did a really cool job. If you didn't watch the CW show for Arrow and Supergirl and all that, where they did the actual Crisis on Infinite Earth story arc, where it's nowhere near as cool as the comic book, in my opinion. They did a lot of cool moments where they actually kind of did on-screen time for various different versions of the characters from throughout all of the TV stuff and the films. So, and that's where Flash is supposedly going to cement this all into together moving forwards.
Well, I liked Arrow. By the time I got really introduced to Arrow, it was like 5 seasons in. And there were like 24 1-hour episodes in a season on that. And I was like, there's just no way. And then on top of that, then by the time you get to there, then there's Supergirl that gets added in, and then Flash that gets, and like, there's no way. I just can't. I'm not going to commit this much time to it. And that was my problem with those shows in particular. I thought there was just 24 1-hour episodes is a lot of filler.
Sure, but in COVID day and age, what else do we have to do? Yeah. Although for me personally, I started watching Arrow when it first started on the WB, and it falls very much in line with what they do there, right? A lot of pretty people doing a lot of stuff that no one else does, and it was too angsty for me. Like it was always like, I don't know, just full of angst. And so I couldn't get into that show. I liked Flash a lot more, but it's a series that has moments that are really cool. So it's the types of shows that I play in the background. And so I could stop whatever I'm doing when I'm seeing something really cool happen and watch that like 10-minute or 15-minute bit and then go about my day doing other things. So I can't sit down and watch this series like I do with some other shows.
Mike, I have not seen Soul of the Dragon, the Batman.
Soul of a Dragon.
Is that an animated? Okay. I tried to watch a couple of the animated Batmans that were on the DC universe. I wanted the Jack the Ripper one to be way better.
It was Gotham by Gaslight.
Yes, I wanted it to be so good, and it just meh. It was okay.
Sure. Well, their animated shows in general are really top notch compared to their live action stuff. But to date, my favorite out of all their animated stuff that they've done is the Young Justice series.
Which fairly new are you talking about, Mike? Mike asked if something that's fairly new, and I was just clarifying here.
Yeah, I'm not sure what he's talking about there. Yeah, we'll see where they're going to go with the Justice League Dark. Mike's mentioning in our comments as well. The animated show was really cool. Again, I just wish they would try and get away from the trying to make a superhero like a comic book movie. So Mike said the Soul of the Dragon. I'm not sure when that originally actually came out. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. The DC movies most of them are fine. Like, other than Batman v Superman, which I've still never made it through. I got to Lex Luthor, and I literally cannot make it past that. It just bothers me.
Sure.
and I don't like Ben Affleck as Batman. And it's not I don't like Ben Affleck. I don't like Ben Affleck as Batman.
He's actually my second favorite Bruce Wayne, behind Michael Keaton.
Okay. I think I still like Christian Bale better, but he honestly might be third because everything after that is awful. I mean, like it's like jumping off a cliff.
Christian Bale do that screamed Bruce Wayne to you? In all three movies that he's in, he was so.
I don't. Okay, I only go with the first two because I think the third one is by far the weakest. I just yeah.
What's that? I'm sorry.
I said I'm going with the first two because the third one I don't count because I just can't. I hated Bane in that movie. Apparently Bane does not translate onto film very well.
So was what's his name? Venom. I don't remember his name now for the life of me. But the actor, he was better than the original Bane in Batman and Robin.
Oh, the wrestler? Yeah.
I don't know if we lost you, Matt. There you are.
No. Yes, he was better than Poison Ivy's Bane that literally just did nothing. But
okay.
Like I said, apparently Bane just doesn't translate well, and some characters don't.
Sure.
There's been some that they've done that I'm like, I
agree.
Believe the character translated, but there are some that just don't.
Yep.
And I think Bane is one of them. Yeah, I kind of wish the DC universe would.
I'm very entertained by Mike's comments in the side.
Yeah. Also, okay.
All right.
They retroactively, real quick, did they retroactively change the name of Boba Fett's ship?
Slave One?
Yeah. It was never mentioned.
What did they call it in Mando?
They didn't. I wondered if Disney would change that due to, it having a problematic name.
Yeah. Yeah. See, I'm so politically not aware of correctness.
They never called it anything, but I mean, you'd never get away with that now. They'd never name a ship that
now. Yeah, I guess.
I'm just curious.
I don't know the answer to that. I've had many conversations with people over the years, and obviously more recently, just due to the fragile natures of everyone's identity these days. That that what's politically correct, what's worth going back and changing. I mean, I'll give my 2 cents here without being political. I personally think that things that were created in a different age were created as a part of that time. And if you want to slap a disclaimer at the beginning of it when you show Gone with the Wind, and say, there may be.
Goldberg says pretty much that exact same thing in an introduction to Tom and Jerry. Like, yep, there are some problematic things with this. However,
yeah, I mean, do you go back and you censor art? Do you go back and because
we could probably do without the Warner Brothers World War II Japanese propaganda stuff, and even some of the Walt Disney German World War II propaganda stuff.
Oh, sure. I mean, you go back and you look at I mean, let's
Some of the South will never be on Disney Plus.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there have been things throughout just even our generation that's been really weird, like editing out the guns in ET, right?
That's
When I mean,
Han Solo
I
or Greedo shooting first.
yeah, right. I mean, so there are all these things that well, that I just it is what it
Uh,
is, regardless of whether current day and age sensibilities say it's okay or not. It was created in a certain time. Now, I'm sensitive enough to say that yeah, okay, I get that my upbringing was not affected by certain aspects in history, but other people's were. And I get that. And I want to be sensitive to other people. But where are those lines drawn? Where are those, where are the concepts of making a movie that's based in reality but showing ugly truths? Should that be censored because you don't like what they're presenting, even, going outside of, whatever appearances or whatnot. I mean,
well,
it's a
things are
really
going to
fine
change.
line.
Yeah, things are going to time's going to progress. Feelings are going to change. Things. What needs to happen is you just need to look at it, and if it's something that's problematic, say, yeah, we see the problem with this. Get it. We won't do this again. But part of that is owning what you did before, saying, yep, I'm sorry, I did this. Let's move forward, and make amends rather than just pretending it didn't happen and then, you know, never
Yeah.
addressing the problem. But
Yeah.
um, I'm guessing we're getting towards our hour here because I see we're at 52 minutes.
I apologize. I don't know whether the connection on our end or it's on your end is a little bit of an issue, but a little choppy tonight. I apologize. But
Oh,
ultimately, at the end, for my personal opinion, I think putting disclaimers in front of things. I mean, if you can have, The Walking Dead be on TV and put some disclaimers in front of it and have people be okay with whatever they're showing, then hey, do the same
Comedy
for
Central has shown the South Park movie in its entirety.
Yeah, that's another good example, right? I mean, because they're doing things that are purposely offensive, right? You
Sure.
know.
And they've said that they purposely do not exclude any group because if they exclude any group, then that becomes uh, insensitive.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's a weird logic, but that's kind of, that was the whole issue they had with Chef when Isaac Hayes quit because of the, well, it was okay when we did it to this group, but now that we did it to somebody that affects you, it's not okay anymore. That's where the line is drawn.
Yeah, I mean, regardless of why things are coming to light, I think that inherently being sensitive to other people is where everyone needs to be. But
Yeah.
it's not. It's just treating everyone as if they're a human being, right?
Yes.
And
And
I
I
think
think that's what it is.
yeah,
Like, I started watching Lovecraft Country again. And some of that's really hard for me to watch because I personally cannot imagine treating another human as less than a human like that. I just can't. And it needs to be the way the show is done. It needs to be ugly like that because it knows, it was. It's still
yeah,
very
it's
uncomfortable.
not pulling any punches, that's for sure. And you can't get away with that on regular TV, right? That's why it exists on HBO. Um, but yeah, you and I talked about that before, and there are definitely scenes in there that are difficult to watch. Um,
But
and you know, and I
oh,
think that's what it all needs to be like. Hey Ben, how you doing? Ben Compton saying hey. We're actually just kind of wrapping up the evening here, but and I apologize. Some of our videos a little choppy. But we're going to hopefully be doing these types of things on a regular basis, talk about comic books and kind of everything comic books. If anyone has any recommendations, suggestions, comments, whatever, make sure you send us some direct messages, and we'll put it up for future stories. We also have a blog that goes along with this. Not specifically the part where I've been talking with Matt, but some of the things I had up my slides at the beginning of this broadcast. That goes a little bit more in depth, gives you some stuff to hunt in back issue boxes and whatnot. Of course, Collectors Corner Incorporated here in Midland, Michigan. We're still here, like they say in Clerks. I assure you, we're open. Even though we are no longer at the Jefferson Road location and are not currently open to the public, we do still offer no contact delivery in the area, worldwide shipping, and even scheduled pickups in Midland as well. So thanks to everyone for coming on out, for Mike in the comments, and for you, Matt, joining us here. And so it's not just me randomly talking to people, because, I'm sure people get bored of my ugly mug. But I think we'll wrap it up for this week, and we'll actually, we've got another special live that we're going to do maybe tomorrow, maybe Tuesday, on one of our regular customers who has bought a ton of key books from us over the past couple of years, and he sent them all in to CGC to be graded. And he's got a couple boxes that he's going to let me open live here so we can show people what kind of quality product we sell. So I'm really excited actually to dig into it and check out what he's got. So keep an eye out for that. And we'll see you all soon. All right, guys?
All right. Thanks, Andy.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.